The wind screamed like a warning across the desolate Montana highway, flinging snow sideways across the cracked asphalt as Darius Bennett tightened his grip on the steering wheel. His fingers, calloused from long days spent under hoods and beneath engines, held steady even as the old Chevy truck rattled beneath him. In the back seat, his 6-year-old daughter, Lila, slept soundly, tucked beneath a patched fleece blanket. Her small breaths fogged the window, lashes dark against her soft cheeks, oblivious to the blizzard outside. Darius had spent the last 12 hours at the local garage, fixing what others called junkers, patching transmissions, and coaxing stubborn engines back to life. The grease still clung to the sleeves of his coveralls, but none of that mattered now. Home was Kalinga warm can of soup, maybe cornbread if he'd remembered the milk. And Lila, safe in her bed, far from this frozen highway. But then he saw it. Hazard lights blinking weakly through the curtain of snow, a luxury SUV half buried in a snowdrift off the side of the road. The back end was sunk deep, the tires spinning hopelessly. Without thinking twice, Darius eased his truck onto the shoulder, careful on the slick pavement. His gut told him this was bad, the way the SUV slumped, no movement inside. Leaving the heater running for Lila, he tugged the blanket higher over her shoulders before stepping out into the storm. The cold smacked him full in the face, biting through his sleeves, stinging his cheeks like needles. He knocked hard on the window, calling out. Nothing. Peering inside, he spotted a woman slumped against the steering wheel, her face pale, lips turning blue. Without hesitation, Darius sprinted back to his truck, grabbed the crowbar from beneath the seat, and wedged it into the cracked passenger window. It didn't take long to pop the lock. When the door swung open, she nearly toppled into his arms, unconscious. Her skin was ice cold, her breathing shallow, barely there. "Hold on," he muttered, cradling her carefully and hurrying back through the pelting snow. He eased her into the passenger seat of his truck, draped his coat over her, and cranked the heater to max. His heart pounded as he checked her wrist again for a pulse, faint but there. Lila stirred in the back, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, who's that?" "Someone who needs help, baby," Darius answered softly, steering the truck back onto the treacherous road. It was a slow crawl to the small house tucked at the end of a gravel road, hidden behind a stand of bare trees. The porch light flickered as the wind howled, but the walls stood strong against the winter's rage. Darius carried the woman inside, laying her gently on the worn couch near the wood-burning stove. The house smelled faintly of pine smoke and coffee, its walls patched here and there, lived in and warm. Pulling off her soaked boots, Darius wrapped her feet in thick wool socks, then swaddled her legs with an old quilt his grandmother had sewn years before. "Lila, sweetie, bring me the thermos from the table." Lila scampered over, handing him the dented red thermos. He poured a cup of chamomile tea, lifting the woman's head just enough to press the mug to her lips. She took a sip, barely conscious, her throat moving weakly. Slowly, color crept back into her cheeks. Her eyes fluttered open, bright blue, disoriented. They met his, and for a moment, there was only confusion between them. "Where am I?" she rasped. "Clarence Falls," Darius answered gently. "You were stranded out there. I couldn't just leave you." She blinked, trying to piece together the night. "The lodge, my phone died. GPS sent me the wrong way, car wouldn't start." "Save your strength," he said, adjusting the quilt around her shoulders. From across the room, Lila hovered, gripping her blanket with the little stars stitched along the edges. She stepped closer, offering it shyly. "This one's mine. It's really warm." The woman smiled faintly. "Thank you, sweetheart." The three of them settled into the quiet hum of the stove. The storm outside still roared, but inside there was warmth, a fragile sense of safety. Darius sat nearby, his arms crossed, eyes watchful as the woman sipped her tea in silence. Hours passed before she gathered enough strength to speak again. "You didn't even ask who I was," she murmured. Darius shrugged, leaning back. "Didn't seem to matter." She studied him, a man with tired eyes, grease under his nails, strength in his calloused hands, yet a softness in the way he spoke. "Most people would have driven right past." "Most people aren't raising a daughter like mine," he replied. "She watches everything I do." The woman's gaze softened. "My name's Evelyn Carter," she said quietly. "I run Carter Automotive." Darius raised an eyebrow, surprised but not impressed by the weight of her title. "Big name," he said simply. "Doesn't change what happened out there." Evelyn held the mug tighter. "Thank you." I owe you my life. You don't owe me anything, he replied, standing to stoke the fire. By dawn, the storm had calmed. Evelyn's color had returned, her hands no longer trembling. Darius trudged back through the snow to her vehicle, toolbox, and charger in tow. It wasn't long before he had the SUV humming again. When Evelyn stepped outside, coat wrapped tight, she hesitated at the driver's door. You didn't have to fix it. Didn't make sense to leave it broken, Darius answered, wiping his hands on a rag. I mean it, Darius. I won't forget this. He nodded once. Drive safe. Weeks passed. Life returned to its rhythm of work, school, and quiet evenings. Until one day, an envelope arrived at Darius' mailbox, heavy cream paper, his name written in elegant script. Inside, a handwritten letter from Evelyn. You reminded me what decency looks like. When no one was watching, you showed up. I want to offer you a position at our new training facility in Helena, lead technician. Full benefits, flexible hours for single parents. This isn't charity. It's the right thing to do. Tucked behind the letter was a receipt, the final payment on his mortgage, marked paid in full. Darius sat on the porch steps, letter trembling in his hands. Lila ran out, her stuffed bear trailing behind her. Daddy, you okay? He scooped her up, holding her close, eyes misty. Yeah, baby, I'm okay. Because sometimes, when you do the right thing, not for thanks, not for credit, just because it finds its way back to you, bigger than you could ever imagine. Miles away, in her high-rise office, Evelyn Carter stood by the window, running her fingers across the thank you note Darius had sent in return. Simple words, heartfelt. You didn't owe me anything, but you gave me everything. Thank you. The storm had passed, but its memory had built a bridge neither of them would ever forget. The wind screamed like a warning across the desolate Montana highway, flinging snow sideways across the cracked asphalt as Darius Bennett tightened his grip on the steering wheel. His fingers, calloused from long days spent under hoods and beneath engines, held steady even as the old Chevy truck rattled beneath him. In the back seat, his 6-year-old daughter, Lila, slept soundly, tucked beneath a patched fleece blanket. Her small breaths fogged the window, lashes dark against her soft cheeks, oblivious to the blizzard outside. Darius had spent the last 12 hours at the local garage, fixing what others called junkers, patching transmissions, and coaxing stubborn engines back to life. The grease still clung to the sleeves of his coveralls, but none of that mattered now. Home was Kalinga, warm can of soup, maybe cornbread if he'd remembered the milk. And Lila, safe in her bed, far from this frozen highway. But then he saw it. Hazard lights blinking weakly through the curtain of snow, a luxury SUV half buried in a snowdrift off the side of the road. The back end was sunk deep, the tires spinning hopelessly. Without thinking twice, Darius eased his truck onto the shoulder, careful on the slick pavement.